What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Halas Hall Hangover. This is 4 Star Chicago Sports. I'm Dustin Jones. That's Brandon Duplessis. How you doing today, boss?
Doing good, man. How about you?
I'm good, man. Happy to be here talking football with you and whatever else we want to get into. Hopefully we get some people in the chat tonight. If you guys are in here, please hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe if you haven't already. Share it with a friend. And keep the comments coming. We're going to try to engage you with what we're talking about today. The more you guys engage with us, the better it'll go, because we're going to want to hear your opinions on some of this stuff. What do we want to get into tonight, Brandon?
Yeah, I think it's, we got the combine.
Okay, just to announce, it's weird. It's the Halas Hall Hangover. It's Monday night. Usually there's 4 boxes here. It's just me and Brandon tonight. Sean couldn't make it. Kyle couldn't make it, but we're holding it down for him. Shout out to those guys. But yeah, just us two tonight. Sorry, everyone.
It's the 2-Star Chicago Sports. Somebody.
Okay.
What up, guys? Will be back. Those guys will be back for their Wednesday show, the Barely There podcast, guys, and they're going to be breaking down wide receivers and tight ends this week. So check that out. That's going to be an interesting one. This is a good class for wide receivers for sure. So yeah, Sean and Kyle will be back Wednesday, guys. Obviously with PT57 or Jay, aka Jay, as well. Right. Yeah, that's nice. I was just hoping to get dive a little deeper into this draft class, especially considering we got the combine coming up. What is it, 2 weeks?
It's this week.
Oh, is it? I thought it was
this Thursday. It starts. No, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we got
the combine coming up into the beginning of March. Yeah.
Yeah, and the combine's always interesting, guys. You start to see like Xavier Worthy, I think, was projected the early 3rd before the combine and ended up being a late first-round pick in the draft, obviously, after said combine, because he blew away a lot of people, a lot of GMs that were there watching that, right? And then, yeah, just a little deeper dive into some of the free agents that are available for the Chicago Bears and what we think, Dustin, the Bears need most in regards to free agency, because me and you have been very big advocates of this. You have to kind of address the position of needs based on what's best available in the draft versus free agency, right? To me, this is a very strong free agency offensive line class, and the same as it is the draft class, but I don't really love any of the free agent edge rushers, and we'll get a little more into that.
Well, yeah, you got to make your plan for the offseason based on what's available to you and what's a real possibility for improvements to your team. And hopefully the Bears are doing that, but we'll dive into our thought process on it. Plank the Tank. What up, brother? How you doing? Thanks for joining us.
What's up, Plank? What's up, Bruce? Bear down, brother. So yeah, Dustin, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with, well, I know you want to talk too, which intrigues me, man. Your favorite moment from your lifetime as a Bears fan, right?
We're gonna start with that. All right, so we'll start with that, and we'll finish with the other one. Favorite moment. I mean, that's a weird segue. Just kind of, I don't know where we were going there, but listen, as Bears fans, you have those moments that kind of cement things for you, or those moments that stick with you,
resonate
through your fandom, right? And I mean, my biggest moment that comes to my mind when I think about that was a Monday night game in December of 2008. The Bears hosted the Packers in what was the coldest game in Soldier Field up to that point in their history. It was like 2 degrees, bro.
And that's saying a lot.
Yeah, it was like 2 degrees. It was like -13 with the wind chill. And like I said, it ended up going to overtime. Aaron Rodgers had a hell of a game. Matt Forte had a hell of a game. I was at the game. I actually came up on some tickets last minute. Like, I got off of work and they told me, my buddies told me they got some tickets. And so we drove out. One thing that actually happened that makes it stick out of my head too is all my buddies were drunk. My buddy had his girlfriend with him and she was drunk. And as I drove, and as we're driving, this girl's like, I gotta pee, and we're on 94. Like, there's nowhere to stop. Like, we're so she ends up peeing in a can in the back of my car. It's pretty.
I can see why this is the most memorable.
Yeah, and it was too cold to stop, anyways. But that game, like that place was electric, man. And everybody was out there freezing their asses off, and nobody went home because it was a back and forth game. And in overtime, Robbie Gould kicked the field goal to win it. And it was just a very cool experience, just being there in the stadium for that game. It felt, kind of historic because of the weather, and you're beating the Packers on Monday night, so that's a moment that really sticks out to me. It was more of I was older at that time, obviously, but that's my favorite moment, I think, as a Bears fan that comes to my mind.
Yeah, anytime the Bears beat the Packers, it's a good one, one to remember, and well, especially as of late. And Robbie Gold did that a lot of times, right? He won a lot of football games on the foot of Robbie Gold.
Robbie Gold is the man. Robbie Gold
Always
is
appreciate Robbie Gold. Yeah, and then I know, Dustin, you're a big Niners guy. He ended up going there and playing a pretty good few years
he
there.
kicked some
So,
big kicks for them as well.
yeah.
And Plank, Bruce, if you guys got any thoughts in terms of your favorite Bears memory, throw it in the chat. We'll share it with everybody if you got
And I
something.
think Robbie Gold actually eliminated the Packers in an NFC Championship game, didn't he, for the 49ers?
Yes, sir. He did.
Yeah. I remember every Facebook meme was Robbie Gold beating the everything the Bears fans could post was Robbie Gold
Just
beating
a
the
Packer
Packers.
killer, no matter where he goes.
Yeah, we didn't have
What
much
about
else
you,
to hang
Brandon?
on.
What stands out in
This
your mind?
this was tough for me, man, because I was thinking things that I were so just glaringly obvious, like the kick return to
Fister's
open
kick
the Super
return in the
Bowl.
Super Bowl. Yeah, obviously that's everybody's.
And then Denny Green's infamous "The Bears are who we thought they were" interview after that miraculous game where Rex Grossman just kept giving the Cardinals the ball and the Bears defense just kept taking the ball away from the Cardinals and
Yeah.
scoring. Really. But the
Urlacher
one that
had that
sticks,
moment, like the replacements moment, where the coach is like, "Give me that ball! I need that ball! I'm gonna get you the ball! I'm gonna get you the ball!" Like,
yeah,
the
was
John Favreau.
well, yeah, Favre. Yeah, what was the linebacker's name? I don't remember, man. What was his
I
name?
just watched that movie recently. I do not remember his name either, but he was a hell of a character. That movie's very underrated. I think The
Oh, it's a
Replacements.
great film. I
Yeah.
still accidentally say Falco when I talk about Joe Flacco.
Sorry, I
I would
cut
have
you
to
off.
say the one. No, sorry, man. The one that kind of snuck into my memory, man, that I did allow myself to forget for a year or two until I saw it pop up on social media, man, was uh, Tillman. Tillman had a game against the Tennessee Titans where he forced
Look at what
four.
Plank just put down here. It's hard to pick one, guys. The defense was so dominant for so long. How about Tillman punches? And that made me think of that Titans game. And now you're
Yes,
hell yeah.
Charles Tillman's
Gotta go.
4 forced fumbles in one game was just, I mean, I remember, I forget who was doing the game, calling the game, but I remember, so it was something in regards to the term hat trick. After he hit the third one out, we were all kind of like, wow, who forces 3 fumbles in a single game? On the very next drive, the very same player, I forget the Titans
It
tight
was.
end, he came from behind again and punched it out. And I believe Tillman actually recovered that one himself as well. But yes, guys, as good as Tillman was, that's a game that any player or any fan outside, even if you're not a Bears fan, has to appreciate. That was ridiculous,
I
man.
watched that game with your brother, actually. I watched that
Yeah,
at his place.
I can't imagine if I don't remember PFF grades, but I can't imagine what Charles Tillman was
Probably a
after that game.
72. Probably a
Yeah, I know
72.
how they ranked me. Yeah, 50, 51. Yeah. It's probably his number 33. You know what I mean?
And Plain points out that it was Charles Tillman's birthday yesterday. And just since we're talking about Charles Tillman, I was scrolling through social a little bit, just a little bit of downtime, and there's a video of Tillman walking around where he works. There's like nothing's safe around Charles Tillman. He's just slapping things out of everybody's
Yeah.
hands as he walks by.
Yeah, the guy's walking upstairs with a to-go food container
Yeah.
and he hits it in the area.
It's
That was
pretty
great.
clear that to-go food container had nothing in it. By the way, they had
Yeah,
stayed.
yeah. The Bears are
Nothing
pitching some
spilled.
good pitching some good stuff, man. On top of the Tillman strip video, there was the Jim McMahon, Caleb Williams autograph signing thing. Did you see
Yeah.
that? Yeah, that
Yeah,
was pretty
the Green
hilarious.
Bay Sucks one. Apparently, a collector put out a $25,000 bounty on that Green Bay Sucks one. Apparently, it's actually in the cards. They're saying like that you
Oh,
can't find it in a pack. So
yeah.
that's pretty cool.
If I had known that, I probably would have wanted that card as well. If that was a real card going into
It is
distribution.
going to be available to someone from what I think it's Tops said. Yeah. So I mean, that's a hell of a commercial too. Like Caleb don't take himself too seriously. They're putting on the headband.
Yeah.
Very
And
80s feel to it.
anytime they can dust Jim McMahon off and throw him into something, man, it's worth watching for sure.
Oh yeah, good for Jim McMahon.
So
Okay.
yeah, I would have to say the Tillman 4 strip game, man.
that was a hell of a game. The Bears just really beat the hell out of the Titans in that game. It was never really close. Tillman was a huge part of that, obviously. But yeah, there's so many good ones, guys. If y'all think of any throughout the show, throw them out there. We'll talk about it. It's okay to get a little nostalgic. There's not a lot of Bears stuff going on right now, so kind of just thinking back to, what made us Bears fans in the first place, or what stands out the most to us from our time watching the Bears. That's always fun to do, I think. Foster covers. Foster, what up, man? How you doing? Everyone is well. Good to see you. Hope
What's
you're
up,
well
Foster?
as well. So what were we moving on to next, Brandon? Do you want to touch on free agency, or do you want to touch on this, just the draft philosophy is really kind of what we want to talk about? I think the quality of this draft class and how the Bears should really be approaching it.
Yeah, I think we're going to weigh pretty heavy on the draft. So let's get into the free agency thing, because I don't think it's going to take us too long. Everybody in our chat and everybody watching is very familiar with the names, guys, that are available, in which the Bears should probably be looking at, right? I mean, you've got a couple of quality guards, especially in this free agency. Trey Smith leading the pack, and then you have
Will Fries,
Dustin. What's the Eagles? The guy who was a first round pick.
Kai Becton, Will
Becton, yeah.
Fries. There's some good ones out there. Tackle wise, Ronnie Stanley with the Baltimore Ravens, but I expect him to get franchised and a deal to happen there. Garrett Bowles, Cam Robinson, Tevin Jenkins is third actually on PFF's list of available free agent guards. Kevin Zeitler from the Lions is another guard. And there's everybody knows the names out there. What I really want to know from the chat, man, and this is and what I want to know from you, Brandon, is who do you think, the Bears have to get one guy? There's one guy in free agency that is available. Who do you want the Bears to go the hardest for? Whether it's Trey Smith or Khalil Mack or whoever is on your radar, I want to know what's the most important position to you and what's the best player at that position for the Bears to 100%. They need to address this.
In free agency, I'm going to say guard, Dustin. I'm going to say that because I don't love the left tackles list. I don't love the centers. I think Coleman Shelton is actually still ranked top 5 in free agent centers, which lets you know it's really not all that good. Plank did give us a moment, Dustin. I think he's talking about the Mike Brown games. How about the back-to-back OT wins? That was awesome.
Mike Brown, pick 6. Yeah. There's so many of
who was that quarterback, man?
Was that? It was against the Niners, right?
I think so. Who was that?
He did one against the Niners. Jeff Garcia.
Chandler. I think it was Chandler.
For the Niners?
No.
Oh,
the Bears quarterback, because he threw a big touchdown to put them into overtime. I think it was a tipped ball. I don't even think it was a good pass. I think it was a ball that bounced around a little bit. And then a player, and then they had the pick where one of the players ended up landing on top of another Bears player and injuring him to make the interception too. That was a good game. Mike Brown, guys, what a shame. His career was obviously cut real short. But Plank, yeah, I see a lot of old highlight films on those games, and they're still fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. I got to say, definitely offensive guard. And then I want to ask you a question. I've been hearing a lot.
Hold on, real quick. Let's just finish your thought here. So guard is your biggest need, so that would be Trey Smith. You think the Bears need to go?
Yeah, well, and I was going to say this. No more bargain shopping. The Bears have made, Ryan Poles at least has
no more Nate Davis level.
Yeah, he's made a history out of signing guys for cheap. If you need to pay a little more for Trey Smith than he's worth, you probably should, right? This is be aggressive.
Money to do it. Yeah. You got to identify a very good talent at one of these positions in need and throw enough money at them to where you get them and lock them down. Because if you're getting an all-pro caliber player, then that becomes worth that investment. And that's going to be someone that will pick up the play level of everyone around them. If you're talking about an offensive line, there's 5 guys on that line. You plug a Trey Smith in there, it's going to make the guys around him better too. So I can understand that being the number one target from a Bears fans perspective. And that seems to be the consensus answer amongst Bears fans. If anybody in the chat has somebody that they want to throw out who the Bears should 100% target in free agency, please do. I do want to make a case, and I don't know if this guy will be if I'm the Eagles, I want to keep this guy, but Milton Williams, the 3 technique for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a huge position of need for the Bears. This guy can create pressure, and he's good against the run. I mean, his PFF grade wasn't great, throughout the season, but PFF grades are whatever they are. He obviously impacted the game for the Eagles, and he's a different type of defensive tackle than Gervon Dexter. I mean, we've talked about it before. Gervon Dexter could be better suited for the nose tackle, that one really more so in terms of his size and the leverage that he's not able to get all the times because of how big he is. You want a shorter, stockier guy that can push that pocket and create pressure on the quarterback, which, I mean, Dexter ended up with, 5.5 sacks this past season? Or
Yeah,
yeah.
5.5, yeah.
So, I mean, like, he created some pressure there, but I think a really true 3 technique is a huge need for the Bears, and I think Milton Williams, if he is available to get an offer to him in free agency, he's a guy worth targeting if you're the Chicago Bears. Foster says Milton's too valuable to Philly. They'll sign him. I would. Yeah, you would think. That's what I'm saying. Like, if he becomes available to give an offer, if Philly even lets that happen, you got to go hard for that guy. I think he is very valuable to that Philly defense, and he would be very valuable to any other defense. He's a good player at that position.
How much do you think Philly's willing to pay him? Because he is depth, is he not? Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter are the starters on that line. I think he's a depth piece. So I don't know how much Philly's going to invest in a guy who only plays for him
in a rotational role for sure. I mean, like, between those 3 guys, though, they're able to keep fresh legs in that middle of the defensive line, and that's a pretty big deal to them in terms of maintaining consistent pressure throughout a game. So it remains to be seen, but he's just a guy I would strongly consider. Obviously, again, Trey Smith is probably the best offensive line on the market and a guy that the Bears should go hard for because the offensive line is a huge need. But getting pressure on the quarterback is also important, and I think you can make a strong case for a guy like Milton Williams being a number 1 target. And then Broski Bear over here says DeMarcus Lawrence is a free agent. I saw that last season ended in week 4 for him with a Liz Frank injury. He'll be 33 when the season starts. He'll be a cheap deal for sure, Brandon.
Yeah, I just got kamikaze by an insect. I don't even know what it was. But yeah, no, he's a good player. His reputation precedes him. The he's played good football.
The leader.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm sure another team's looking at Tevin Jenkins this way. He's got an injury history, but when on the field, he's a really quality player, and somebody's going to be willing to pay him for sure, man.
For sure, man. And like DeMarcus Lawrence, again, is a leader. He's a veteran in the locker room. He's a guy who would be a cheap 1-year deal probably. And, then you can kind of buy yourself some time to address some other things in the draft and free agency. If you get a guy like him to put on the opposite side of Sweat, you're kind of locking that down for a year, but you're also hoping he stays healthy. He missed, like you're pointing out, Broski, he missed all of last season. And those Liz Frank injuries, those ones are tough. The guys coming back from those.
And the benefit of signing a guy like Lawrence, who is a rotational piece at the age of 33, you still have a guy like Austin Booker who you want to acclimate to this defense. You want him to play, right? He was traded for in the draft only a year ago.
I want to make very clear that I do believe in Austin Booker. I know there's doubt on him. He was a project player when he was drafted, but his size skill set combination is something that I'm a big fan of. And I think as he gets his legs under him, he can become a pretty big force in the NFL. I do expect that from Austin Booker.
And regardless of,
I've been wrong before, so who knows?
Regardless of how big an impact he made as a rookie or didn't, he played a lot of football. And that's always a good thing for a guy coming into his second season in the NFL, right? You have to play football as a rookie.
Gotcha,
and I think he played a lot more than the Bears anticipated just due to depth. Like, they were hurting, and now Walker's not even with the team anymore, right? So that's a piece of news we can share. I'm sure everyone's aware of, guys. DeMarcus Walker is not on the Chicago Bears anymore. It was a salary cap hit.
Between him and Everett, the Bears cleared about a little over $10 million in cap space, right, to put towards free agency and their draft. And those are smart moves. And, I mean, Walker honestly was one of the standout players on this defense this past season to me. Towards the end of the season, he was a guy that played hard every snap.
Hey guys, I think what Dustin was about to say is DeMarcus Walker was one of the players who I think made an impact when leaned on this year, because they did have so many injuries and so many issues on that defensive line. Sorry,
Did I just
Dustin, we
cut out,
lost you.
Brendan?
Yeah, we lost you for a
Yeah,
little
no.
bit there.
Walker was one of the better players on this defense in the second half of the season. So I mean, it's tough to see him go, but at the same time, like you're saying, he had to fill in, and he's just not that level of player. You know, he's going to stand out because the defense was really just not playing well in general. So he is a replacement level player. So it makes sense for the Bears to move on from him, as much as he did perform pretty well towards the end of this past season.
And what's going to benefit Walker is once Billings was injured, they used Walker inside a lot where I thought he excelled. I thought he's pretty lackluster on the edge. He doesn't do a great job on the edge, not even against the run. He wasn't really setting the edge too well. But on the inside, man, he made an impact in the pass rush for sure.
Any free agent running backs? I do want to say real quick, talking about the edges, Chase Young is a very legitimate option. Still a young guy, still has high potential. That again, a guy with a pedigree coming out of the draft that you could still see him turning into that, because there's still future in front of him in terms of how much he can get better, and he has the size skill set combination that you're looking for in that position from a young guy.
And he was ranked one of the highest edge rushers against the run, I believe, this last season as well. And the Bears need that too, guys. We're not just focused on pass rush here. It's all bad, right?
Yeah, for sure. Pass rush would be nice, though.
They allowed 136 yards against the run. They were ranked 27th. So the Bears need to get better there as well as getting to the quarterback for sure.
Yeah, and as Broski says here, Walker wasn't a starting caliber defensive end. He's a nice backup D lineman to have, but he's not starting material. Yes, that 100%. And that's basically what I was saying. He's a replacement level player, and the Bears are going to replace him, and it needs to be with somebody better, starting caliber player for sure. And I think the issue that we found, and listen, you're going to hit on free agents and you're going to miss on free agents. Like the Philadelphia Eagles just had a very good free agency, but they also missed on a guy like Huff. You know what I'm saying? So like you're going to have hits and misses. The hits need to outweigh the misses. And when the Bears signed Walker, it was for him to be the starter, the opposite defensive end. He was to be a starting defensive end on this defense, and that never panned out. And if you have too many of those start to stack up, that's when your team's level of play really starts to decrease over time, and you see you see the results of these misses, and it affects your team. So the Bears have to hit on a few guys in free agency this year to have any chance at being competitive, in my mind, Brandon.
Yeah, and at what cost do those misses come? Because like you just mentioned, Bryce Huff, guys, that cost the Eagles $51 million.
Yeah, but they won a Super Bowl. You know, it's the cost of doing business. Like
he was a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl. So,
but you got Bond and you got Saquon Barkley. You know, and these are two guys that impacted either side of the ball in very big fashions for them. So, like those hits outweighed that miss. You know, and they won a Super Bowl because of those hits.
Yeah, and I think a team like that who drafts well and their free agent, like you said, Dustin, they did a great job in free agency, regardless of the Huff signing. They're able to make up for moves like those. The Bears we're hoping will be a team like that one day, at least.
Yeah, you don't want to get upside down on it, and that's kind of where the Bears are right now. You know, when you talk about a Nate Davis signing and the guy's cut, you talk about a Gerald Everett signing and the guy is cut within less than a year, basically, of being signed. Those things do start to add up. You know, you do expect misses, but you got to get some hits too.
Yeah, not just regards to cash, man. We traded a 5th-round pick for Ryan Bates, who would anyone care if that guy's not on this football team?
He should be cut too, right? Like, I mean, is there a reason?
I wouldn't be too upset about it, man. I don't want to see him ever play on my line again. So
yeah, so when you start to give up assets, whether it's cash or draft capital for guys that don't pan out consistently, that your team will not compete. It just won't. So we have to see hits in free agency, hits in the draft. Broski says Bears will save $4 million if they cut Bates.
Yeah, he brought that quick. Thanks, Broski.
Yeah, no, that's been out there, and it's the thing that a lot of fans want. I see it across the board on all the social media platforms. Why isn't Bates cut yet? Basically, so you're not alone in that, Brandon. Are there any other free agents out there that you're interested in? And as we're talking about these guys that we're hoping the Bears might hit on, is Josh Sweat a guy that you're interested in? Is Najee Harris a guy you're interested in? I mean, what
Nick Chubb, if it came at a good cost, is a guy that I would give a 1-year deal to.
$3 million. It'll be a 1-year, $3 million deal, probably, Brendan.
Because
somewhere in there.
He suffered a pretty severe injury, guys, but it is an injury that Mark Andrews came back from, and I think Nick Chubb was a much more athletic player when suffering that injury. So If
It's an
he's
injury
working,
Saquon Barkley came back from.
yeah, if he's working hard to get back into shape, Chubb is an impactful player when he's got the ball in his hands, no doubt.
Yeah, and you could get him on a very cheap. You will get him on a cheap prove it deal, and if he performs above those expectations, that's the stuff that takes a team from middling to over the top in terms of competitiveness. When you get a good value, not just a hit, but a really good value in free agency.
And
Chubb
he's
could
more
be,
than a year removed from the injury, right? He did come back and play last year, and he had Jerome
yeah.
Ford to help him out. But and the
It was
Bears have
tough
the
sledding for Chubb last season, bro. Tough
and the
sledding.
Bears have when their quarterback play was terrible. And the Bears have the benefit of spelling him, man. You have Swift on this team still. Chubb doesn't need to be a three down back. He doesn't need to be an every down back. He doesn't need to be a workhorse by any means. If you can
Yeah, no,
keep him
just
healthy
get
by
us the
putting
yards when
Swift
we
on the
need them.
field. Yeah.
Yeah, Swift can be your big play guy, and Chubb can be your I need 2 yards. It's a huge moment. Go get me those. Like, yeah, that can work out. So I like that. Free agency is going to be interesting, obviously, in terms of how the Bears approach it and who they end up with. But as Broski points out right here, this is an excellent defensive end draft. Bears can draft one in the second and the fifth, and out of those two, land an immediate starter that can contribute as a rookie. And again, not going to throw Austin Booker out with the bathwater. I do think we will see improvement from him this season after a full season in the NFL with the reps he got. But adding another defensive end, a young one in this draft, would definitely be a prudent decision by the Bears, Brandon. Crooked
What's
Commish,
going
what up?
on, Crooked Commish?
How you doing? Thanks for joining us. Hit that like button, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for being here, brother.
Bears have so many free agents, it's hilarious. Thanks, broski. So, Brandon, draft-wise, we were talking about this a little bit before the show started. And we've been talking about it throughout the past week on multiple shows we've been on. This draft is deep. It's very deep. And what Broski's pointing out with that comment about the drafting a defensive end in the second, from the second to the fifth round, you got starters in this draft. Our concern, because I think the Bears can get some good players as well, Broski, in those spots. My concern is if there's talk about trading down with that 10th pick. Because, Brandon, as you pointed out, and as I pointed out, at the top of this draft, there's not a lot of elite talent, blue chip talent. It's very deep, and you got starters going deep into this draft. But blue chip talent, not a lot of that.
Yeah, Dustin, I like to Draft Buzz is a website that I like to look at when I'm looking at potential draft projections for players. And I've counted since 2021. They started to do the Draft Buzz started to do the rating the potential prospects in the NFL draft. And I think in 2021 it was somewhere in the high 20s, 28 players that ranked 88 or above. Now, guys, when I was looking at these players, 88 were the guys who you're hearing about going anywhere in the top 15 picks. Anyone ranked 88 or higher. And then in 2022, it really bumped up. It got up to 32. And then the year we took Darnell Wright, guys, 2023, there was a little less. It was 18. Last year, with there being 6 first-round quarterbacks, there was 22 players ranked 88 or higher. Dustin, this draft is the lowest since Draft Buzz has started this at 13. 13 players with a ranking of 88 or higher in this draft. That's a very low number. And like I said, those are the numbers, or those are the guys, the 88s are more the guys you kind of look at as potential blue chip players. And that is a concern. If anybody is thinking the Bears have the ability to just trade back, you have to consider how far the talent drops off from that 10th pick to wherever it is you think you're going to land, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it lines up with exactly what I was saying last week on our show, Brandon. There's 10 to 14 guys really that you're in that range where from that, those are the blue chip talents in this draft. And the Bears are in a position to get one of them. I'd be much more open to trading up than trading down from that 10th spot. If you identify a guy that is one of those elite talents that you want, that you could potentially move up for, I would support that much more than moving back and taking a chance at not having one of those guys fall to you. I mean, but we did a deep dive into mock drafts on our most recent show on Thursday. And it's an offensive lineman. Every mock draft right now is predicting an offensive lineman to the Bears at that 10 spot. That's just what it is. Whether it's Kelvin Banks, Will Campbell, there's one. Matt Miller put Tyler Booker out there, Ariante Ursary, Armand Membu. The offensive line is where people have identified the Bears are going to be leaning with that 10th pick as of now. And again, things will change. But of those guys, I mean, Banks and Campbell, in my mind, they are blue chip talent in this draft. And
Yeah,
you got to come away with a guy like that with this 10th pick. You can't miss on an opportunity to add that level of player in this draft because, like you're saying, there's just not many of them.
yeah, and we talked about last week, guys, a change in culture with this Bears team. It feels like they're
Dano,
doing
what
things a
up,
little
bro?
different. The hiring of Ben Johnson is one of those things. And Dustin, how many times have we asked ourselves, why, as Bears fans, can we identify things this organization can't see glaringly in front of them, like the Matt Eberflus, the retaining of Matt Eberflus? I think it's pretty obvious, hopefully, to Ben Johnson, that if you have a chance at one of these two guys in Banks or Campbell, you probably need to take one of those guys. They're two quality left tackles. I don't want to hear about the arm's length. I really don't. If you draft one of these guys, that's your starting left tackle the day you draft them.
Yeah, he's the best. They'll be either one of those guys will be the best left tackle on your team immediately. Broski points out that he believes Tyler Warren will be the Bears' first. We talked about this on Thursday. Like Tyler Warren, regardless of the fact that you have Cole Kmet, he's getting Rob Gronkowski comparisons, George Kittle comparisons.
Yeah, he's climbing draft boards.
I mean, this guy is a beast. He's massive. He's a mover. He can be great in the slot. He can basically do everything. He threw for a touchdown, ran for a touchdown, and caught touchdowns, obviously, this past season. I mean, he does everything really well. I would not be opposed to Warren as if that's the guy that's available at 10 when the Bears draft and they don't have an opportunity at those tackles. I'm all for it, man. I like Tyler Warren a lot. Colston Loveland is another tight end in this draft that a lot of people have in the top 10 in terms of his talent. So there is some good tight end on the high end in this draft. This is a good draft for tight ends in general. And Dan says,
and Dustin, you pointed it out last week on our bare minimum. This is something that Poles is now known for, guys. Poles goes after that player. We saw with Rome Odunze last year. There were bigger needs for the Bears in the last offseason and during the draft, but he clearly had
Rome is the best player on his board.
Yeah, when they got to the 9th pick, that's the guy who was still left at the top of his board, and that's who he drafted.
So I mean, and then is Gianti, however you say his name, is he an option for you at that 10 spot if he were to be the best player available? Like the Bears don't have that player on this roster. They don't have a Saquon Barkley. They tried to get him last year in the free agency, but they weren't able to do it. Swift was the consolation prize, right? But is he worth taking at that 10 spot? I mean, we've had people advocating for that, and I totally understand it. It's something I would consider. I mean, the grades that this guy has as a runner are on par with some of the best running backs that have been drafted over the last 10 years.
Yeah, guys, and you got to think to yourself, like, think about these things after the fact, right? If the Bears, what's going on, Daniel? What's going on, Point? What's going on, Phil? Sorry. If they drafted Genty, would you really be disappointed? I mean, you might be a little shocked. You might be a little surprised, but are you going to be disappointed that they're drafting the guy who has the highest pre-draft grade of any running back besides Christian McCaffrey and I believe what was it, Derrick Henry?
Yeah, man. And then
he's up there in some good company, man. This guy, I think 100%. Joe Mixon was below him.
And Broski points out that you can get a starting running back in the second. You can get a starting running back in the 5th round of this draft, probably. Like, so that might factor into the Bears' decision at 10. I don't know that they're going to go tight end. I want them to go best player available. If that player is Tyler Warren, so be it. Because I personally think Quinshon Judkins is the best running back in this draft, and he's a guy you can get in the 2nd round, and he would fill the exact role that this Bears team needs. I mean, his most common current player comparison is Joe Mixon. You add a guy like that to this backfield to pair with DeAndre Swift, I think you got a lot of things going, and I think you can be grooming Judkins to be an every down back for you. So, I mean, like, Gianti I wouldn't be upset with at all because he's an elite level talent. And again, our focus 100%, regardless of anything, if the Bears come away with one of these top 10 guys in terms of talent evaluation, these blue chip guys, I'm going to be happy. I am, whether it's a tackle, whether it's a a guard potentially. We haven't really mentioned Tyler Booker very much. I think he is a blue chip guy in this draft that hasn't really been identified as that by a lot of people. I think he can be a hell of a player in this draft. So, I mean, like, there's a lot of options for the Bears, Brandon. We just want him to take the best player available. Am I right in surmising it that way?
Yeah, I don't want this team. I don't want this new staff overthinking anything. I want them to think who is going to have the biggest impact on this team immediately, and that's I think how you're evaluating the best player available, right? Like I don't want when you're taking a guy with the 10th pick, Dustin, you're not looking at projects. I never want to hear the term "he could be" when taking in the top 10, right?
Yeah.
I don't want, you want a guy who is, and I think Genti
And
is definitely one of those players.
that's the problem with guys like these defensive ends like Shamar Stewart and Landon Jackson. And I mean, there's guys that they project to be that, but they haven't had the results on the field. I want a guy that has shown it on tape and has that physical ability that you can measure with the combine and with all those fancy numbers and everything they do. But what's more important to me, man, is what they produce on the field against good competition. And I mean, guys like Banks have produced at left tackle their entire careers in college against the best competition. Campbell, same thing. Tyler Warren, same thing. I mean, these are guys that Gianti, same thing. I mean, you can question the talent level that he's gone against in that conference that he's played in, but he's done it consistently, so it's like I want the combination of both. I don't want just that project that you're talking about, that you're bringing up, Brandon, and I'm 100% in agreement with you on that.
Yeah, and I even took a little deeper dive, man, into Mason Graham, who's by all measures,
oh my god,
great,
game record,
is the best defensive tackle in the draft, the best 3-tech especially. But when I looked at his numbers, I think the most sacks he had in a season in college was 3.5.
Yeah, it's not about that. Yeah, it's the pressure that he creates. He's great against the run. I mean, the guy is just a complete he's a complete game maker. He's a great 3 technique. He will get after the quarterback and get pressure on the quarterback from the inside of that pocket. And if in my opinion, if he's available at 10, that would be a miracle. And if the Bears didn't draft him, I would be upset with that. If Mason Graham became available at 10, and you don't take them now, unless you sign Milton Williams in free agency, like I just talked about, because then obviously that could change some things. But you need a 3 technique, a legit QB pressuring 3 technique, and you see that's how teams win. Like the Eagles have that rotation we're talking about between Carter and Davis and Williams, and they're able to keep fresh legs out there and keep consistent pressure on the quarterback, and how much that impacts their defense and makes the game easier on their defensive backfield and their linebackers. Like the Bears did not have that luxury this past season or the season before that, to be quite honest.
Yeah, guys, and I don't want to get too cute, but when we're talking about offensive linemen potentially at that 10th pick, I want to stress that the Bears are very weak on the left side of the line. So even if it's a guard you're looking at, your left side of the line needs to be prioritized here, I think, Dustin, this offseason. Darnell Wright is a really quality player. He can make a player better who's playing alongside him. That left side is just weak top to bottom.
It needs to be addressed. 100%. So a couple comments I want to get to here, Brandon, because we're sparking some engagement here. Zach says Najee Harris is only 26, never been injured, and never under 1K rushing yards, is a free agent. I'd take him over any running back in the draft. I am a big fan of Najee Harris, and I did a whole show about this basically, where I mentioned the fact that he has 4 consecutive years of 1,000 yards rushing. The production is there, and he is young. He is going to come at about 8 to 9 million a year. So now between him and Swift, you're paying 16, 17 million a year for your running backs. That's more of a tough pill to swallow, and you're going to have him on a 3-year deal. So, I mean, I'm not against Najee Harris, and if the Bears do that, then they don't have to worry about running back. But if I was choosing between signing Najee Harris and drafting one of these awesome running backs who are going to be available in the second round, I'd go with the younger, fresher legs. I would. And then Broski says Travion Henderson reminds him of Gibbs. He'd be a money second-round pick for the Bears. I like Judkins better, and it's a good conversation. Travion Henderson has a lot of speed, great receiver out of the backfield, and but I think he's pretty comparable to DeAndre Swift in terms of his skill set. I think the Bears need something different, and I think Judkins brings a good combination of the hard yards that he can get you and get the touchdowns and the short yardage situations, but he can also break big plays. He had 28 10-plus yard runs. I mean, he's just a hell of a player all around. I think he's a better all around player than Henderson.
Yeah, it's a really strong running back class, and that's why, as much as I love it, Genty, it's really hard to justify that when there's so much talent in this draft at that position. And
you have
like
other
said,
positions. Yeah.
Judkins could end up being just as good as Nash and Genty. Nash and Genty's a really quality player, guys. I don't know that he's seen the caliber of defense that the NFL is going to provide him. So Judkins, I could definitely say this. Judkins is more battle tested at the position. Judkins has played the best defenses in college. He tore Notre Dame to shreds in that championship game.
And that was the best defense in
touchdowns.
college football that they were playing against, maybe besides their own.
Yeah, their defensive coordinator just won positional coach of the year.
And before that, he was at Ole Miss in the SEC running all over people too. It's not like he just did it at Ohio State. I mean, the guy has had a consistent production throughout his college career. And then, Brandon, there's a question from Broski that I want you to answer if you're available. He says, if Mason Graham's available, Tyler Warren or Aston Gianti all on the board at 10, who are you taking of those three?
I like Mason Graham.
I'm taking Mason Graham.
Yeah, the position to me is most important, the three technique. Those guys are all quality players. I think they're all the best at their position in the draft. So I think when we're looking at three of the best players at their position, you're going to start to wonder which position is most important to you, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think Mason Graham is at his position. I don't know that there's anyone close to him in terms of that defense tackle.
Not in this draft.
No. Yeah. And Crooked Commish is not for Najee Harris at all. Draft a young cheap back like Gibbs. Listen, that seems to be the consensus amongst Bears fans, and I know they really don't like Najee Harris. I am not on that train. I like the idea of Najee Harris. I think he could be productive for this Bears team if they get an offensive line. And if you pair him with DeAndre Swift, who Broski doesn't seem to think is going to be on this team, but I think he will be. I don't think Swift is going anywhere. They just paid him. He's going to get at least another year to try to prove himself. And hopefully in a Ben Johnson offense, they'll figure out a way to utilize Swift and maximize his strengths, which this last coaching staff did not do at all. Whether it was Waldron or Thomas Brown, they did not utilize Swift the way I think he can be best utilized. But yeah, Broski liked our answer to the question, Brandon. Mason Graham, let's build the trenches. Yes, 100%. Philip, again, thanks for joining us, everybody. Free agency is key to what I'm about to say. Minus free agent signings, if I were Poles, I would draft O-line and D-line easily with their first 4 picks. My guess is Poles signs 2 O-line and 1 D-line. We're all wanting to fix the trenches. I think we're all in agreement there as Bears fans. We got to fix the offensive line, but we can't neglect the defensive line. If you have to impact your defensive line, because just as important as protecting your quarterback is pressuring the other team's quarterback, Brandon.
Yeah, and especially in this division, because, guys, I think the quarterbacks in this division, I mean, Sam Darnold probably won't be a quarterback in this division, but when you're looking at guys like Jared Goff and Jordan Love, there's players that can tear you apart, but there are also players that once under pressure can make a lot of mistakes, guys.
Yeah. Turd Ferguson is with us. What up, man? Hit that like button. Thanks for joining us. Crooked Commish about the Najee Harris thing. Yeah, like I said, it's going to be – they're projecting him at like $9 million a year, basically. I don't know that I want to pay that much for Najee. He is 6'3", 240 pounds. He is a massive dude, and he's been consistent in terms of his production. So it wouldn't be the end of the world, but if I have my choice between – I think you got to take a running back in the second round. If you're the Bears, I think they need that thunder to the lightning of DeAndre Swift, and I think they can get it in the second round. So, I mean, if you're targeting offensive line with your first pick, I think it's got to be a combination of that running back and D line with your next 2 picks in that second round. I mean, but again, you can't control how the board's going to fall to you, so you're going to have to just kind of take the best players available and try to balance that with your positions of need. But Brandon, we need talent on this football team. That's the main thing we have to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think there's going to, like you said, this loaded with this draft is deep. When I say that, I mean there's potential starters all the way into the 5th round probably. And I think the Bears can find and I'm not just talking about guys who can play behind DeAndre Swift, play a good, like a quality role behind DeAndre Swift, make an impact. A guy who could be the future
turn into the 3-down running back that the Bears desperately need. Yes, 100%. I agree with that. And I think there's a few guys that can do that the Bears will have available to them. Zach, Brandon, we wanted to touch on this a little bit because we are talking about this top level talent and that there's so few of it. But after that, I mean, from the middle of the first, late first, all the way to like the third round, a lot of guys are going to have very similar grades. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not a proponent of trading up those 2 second-round picks or 1 second-round pick and another later pick to move up, like Zach is saying he saw in a Sports Illustrated article where the Bears traded 39 and 72 to the Texans to move up to 25. I don't know that it's worth it. I think the grading between guys at 39 and 25, I think it's going to be really close, man. And you should maintain your draft capital, I think, to get as many potential starters as you can with those picks. What do you think?
A statement from a unanimous statement from an NFL GM said he believes that there's 4 or 5 blue chip players. So even less than we believe, Dustin. But he said after that, there's about 40 to 50 players that come immediately after those blue chippers, right? So there's
That
about
are all
40
in
to
the
50
same tier,
players that he thinks could be potential first round talents or even high second round talents, guys. So he's talking about going, I mean, right where Cooper DeJean was taken, right? You're talking
Yep.
about starters all the way into the 40th pick of the draft, and you're in the second round there. So
we got Trey Shy joining us. What up, man? Thanks for joining us. Hit that like button. Ant
what's
Mess
up?
is always here for us, man. Bear down, brother. Thanks for joining us. And again, another shout out to Phil and Turd Ferguson. Everybody in here, man. Y'all are killing it in the chat. Appreciate it greatly. So, I mean, we're kind of wanting to stand pat with those second round picks and take the best players available. And I mean, you can start getting into more need, I guess, but I still just kind of want to maintain the principle of I'm going to get impact players on this team with every draft pick I can, and I want to take the best player on my board with those first 3 picks, Brandon.
Absolutely, and I think you can find difference makers with all 3 of those picks. I don't think you need to, unless there's
Starters.
somebody
You can
that
find starters with all 3 of those
unless
picks.
there's somebody the Bears have their sights set on guys that's projected at the bottom of the first round.
Very good point, Zach.
I don't think you need to do too much moving around.
Yeah, no. And I mean, the moves that the Bears have made have kind of put them in this position. As Zach points out, that 40th pick that they traded for Sweat turned into Cooper DeJean. I mean, like, and Sweat became an overpaid guy. I mean, the guy is one of the worst guys in terms of win rate and pass rush win rate this past season. And he's like the 5th highest paid defensive end in football.
Directly behind Myles Garrett.
That hurts. That hurts, man. That hurts. So, like, the Bears just have to hit guys. And again, I think it's just about in free agency being smart, but also knowing who you want to pay, who you are willing to pay extra for. If that's a Trey Smith or Milton Williams or Najee Harris, or like just having a plan in terms of going into free agency. Who are we okay with getting in a bidding war for? Like, and have those guys identified. And just identify the best talent possible in free agency in the draft and stick to what you had planned. You know, things are going to change, but your board will still be there, and you gotta stick to your board in that draft.
Yeah, we talk about the potential of overpaying for a Trey Smith or a Josh Sweat, but the reality is, guys, we continue to use this phrase overpay. The reality is this is the standard. So in a few years from now, you're not going to be looking at those. Yeah, you're not going to be looking at these expected contracts as overpaid because that's just the way this league is going, right? We just raised the cap, just increased again.
Mm-hmm.
And the NFL is one of the leagues that money goes to the players.
Crooked Commish is a little buzzed. Just got back from Cub spring training. What up? Bear down.
We got a 49ers free agent, Dustin.
What's that?
Dre Greenlaw.
Oh, yeah. Linebacker, I mean, listen, you got Edmonds and you got Edwards. Edmonds has been a huge disappointment. Another guy, the Bears let Roquan Smith go, traded him for a second-round pick and didn't want to re-sign him. But then they paid Edmonds very close to that amount, that money, to be on this team, and he's been very disappointing. He's been injured, and he has not performed well. So, I mean, a guy like Dre Greenlaw, he can move from sideline to sideline really well. He's fast. He's been a hell of a linebacker, but he also has injury issues. So I don't know how much I would break the bank for him. I'd rather just re-sign Sanborn and run it back with these guys and improve what's around them. Make sure my defensive backfield is strong behind them and get some guys that can fill up some gaps in front of them to where it makes their job easier. And maybe we see Edmonds turn into what the Bears thought he would be, because moving on from that contract right now, that's tough.
I heard this today from I wasn't Bleacher Report. I
Daniel
forget
Jeffries just joined us, by the way. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for being here, bud.
I forget where I read it, man, but there was an article today about the potential because of the affiliation with Ryan Poles that they signed Bolton, the linebacker from the Chiefs.
And Bolton is a guy the Chiefs aren't going to want to let get away. Like we really got to see who ends up getting franchised because that's still up on the table right now. And then Bolton is the leader of that Chiefs defense. That would be a huge blow for them to lose him. And Ant Mass pointing out here, this class of linebackers is undersized. Just in general, I mean, Nick Bolton's not that big. Like the guy we're talking about right now, I mean, that's kind of what the linebacker position is turning into in the NFL because they need guys that can stick with these tight ends like Tyler Warren that are coming into the NFL and these running backs out of the backfield like Travion Henderson and Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, these linebackers, they got to be short. They got to be smaller and quicker, to be honest. All right. Very good. Brandon's not going to be with us for a second, guys. Keep the comments coming. But yeah, I mean, there are some good linebackers in this draft. That's just not a direction I see the Bears going into. But it would be an interesting thought experiment to see if they would be willing to replace a Tremaine Edmonds. I just don't see it happening, just with the implications from the money they've already given him, and that he's still guaranteed some money. So I think our best hope as Bears fans is that we put, like I said, some big guys in front of those linebackers that open up some lanes for them to just fill, and make their life easier. Ant Mass is coloring with his kid and listening to 4-Star. Appreciate you, bro. What are you guys coloring? I love coloring with my kids. Zach thinks we should trade Edmonds to Dallas. Flus loved him. Yeah, I mean, shit, if Flus could get Dallas to be that stupid, I would be all for that. Flus seems to have that effect on the organizations he works for. But the Cowboys are in need of some linebacker help for sure. That's an interesting thought, Zach. Dogs and cats. All right. Some lions and tigers and bears as well. Guys, one of the things that I really want to focus on with this Bears draft is addressing the trenches like we've talked about. But I think we all kind of, and I've done it myself, man, where I just kind of get into this straight tunnel vision thing of like, we got to get O-line with that first pick. And then we got to get D-line with that second pick. And then turn around and go O-line again with that other second round pick. And it's like, that works and as a thought experiment, I guess, but you can't control how this board is going to fall to you. You really can't. So, I mean, as we've talked about, addressing the opportunities as they come, whether it's free agency or the draft, the Bears are going to have to be really flexible with how things fall to them. And if they do need to trade up or trade back, I think that's one thing we can like have some faith in Ryan Poles about, Brandon, is that he has conviction to his board and he does have the flexibility to trade up or down depending on what he sees. More trading up in the middle rounds is what he has done. But I mean, do you have faith in Poles to read the board and get the players that not only the Bears need, but are actual the most talented players at those spots that they're being picked?
I gotta see. I gotta see it, man. Ryan Poles' drafting it's probably pretty close to league average in regards to hits, and I think they judge that based on who gets a second contract. The players you've drafted being retained after their rookie deals. But I could see Ryan Poles, Dustin, very well trading into the 4th round. I don't think he's content not having a 4th round pick. I would imagine
so trading some future capital for that, you think?
Yeah.
Like a 5th and next year's 4th or something.
Yeah,
try to move up.
Something that gets him back, and then Dustin, that obviously goes. You have to analyze how good do you think the talent is in the 4th round? How deep do you think the talent is? If Ryan Poles agrees with you and I and some of the professionals we've read now,
you can get a starter there.
Yeah.
Then he might want to get it back in there. That's a good point, Brandon. And Zach, this is kind of what I'm warning against. It was just a thought that I've had, like, because a lot of Bears fans are saying, I am offensive line pick 10 no matter what. And again, every mock drafter is the same thing for the Bears. But as Broski Bear pointed out earlier, like if Tyler Warren's there or if Mason Graham is there, how do you pass on those guys? That's hard. That's hard because you have a pretty good idea that they will be an elite level talent in the NFL, and passing up on that to address the need versus taking the best player available is exactly what I don't want the Bears to do. Exactly what I don't want the Bears to do.
Yeah, the Bears have had a lot of GMs who are real big on this, trying to get as many picks as they can in a draft versus the best players, right? And it just hasn't, guys, as Bears fans, we've all been watching this team for as long as we have. It hasn't proven to work. I don't think it ever really does, to be honest. And I think teams that win championships are the teams that are most aggressive when they identify players they want. We can say that the Bears made the right move in getting Darnell Wright, who's been a real big impact player for this team, but the Eagles had conviction on Jalen Carter, right? They were probably shocked that he was only one pick away from him.
And that the Bears would actually give up the opportunity to draft him.
We got to do whatever the hell we can do to get this pick from the Bears to take this.
They didn't have to do much. They didn't have to do much, Brandon.
And that helped them win a Super Bowl.
And that hurt the Bears. It did. Not adding that talent when it fell to them hurt the Bears. It ultimately did. We got a couple questions here I want to try to answer, Brandon, and then we can move on to your deadlines. All right. Daniel Jeffries says, do you think that the Bears can pull off the ultimate free agent market by signing the top two free agents, Garrett and Trey? Now, Garrett's not a free agent. He's asked for a trade. If the Bears can pull off the trade, I am all for it. I mean, obviously, I don't want to give up my arm and my leg, but I'll give up an arm to get Garrett for sure. Trey Smith is a guy they should go very strong for. We started the show by saying that, Daniel. He should be probably the Bears' number one target in free agency, and they should be willing to overspend for him. I will be somewhat disappointed if they don't make a very strong play for him. Whether or not they get him or whether or not the Chiefs give him the opportunity, that's a different story. But if he's available, the Bears should have one of the best offers out there for him, and we should be hearing about that. Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think the cost is kind of set for Trey Smith. There was a lot of people hoping that maybe his value would come down because of one game he played in the Super Bowl. That's just not the case, guys. His numbers were pretty phenomenal for the entirety
throughout the entire season. You don't judge a guy on one game or one series. Yeah. Their whole body.
That's why I'm willing to pay him, even if it's more than you hope to. That's why a guy like Josh Sweat concerns me, because Josh Sweat, who had a hell of a Super Bowl, didn't have the kind of season that Trey Smith had, right?
Yeah, you don't want to be that flash in the pan. Like when the Bulls drafted Tyrus Thomas because his tournament performance versus taking LaMarcus Aldridge, who had the best college career of anybody that was available, like that pissed me off. Like, I don't like that.
Burned him. That burned him. Got a first
Phil says, do you I'm trying to understand this question. Dustin and Brandon, you may or may not have answered this. Who in this draft would you sign hands down with their first 4 picks, day 1 and day 2 of the draft? I'm confused.
Who in this draft would you draft hands down? I'm guessing is what he's asking. Would you draft hands down with the first 4 picks, day 1 or day 2? I think if Will Campbell, Philip, falls to you at 10, there's no way you don't draft this guy. By every mock draft I've seen, he's gone in the first 6 picks.
But if Mason Graham's there,
Mason Graham's. Guys, if the best player at any position is available with the 10th pick, that's very rare. And obviously within means, I'm not talking about punters and kickers and nonsense. I mean, like, if the best player at a position is available to you at 10, that's not very common. It's not common that this happens. So if it's a Warren, like a tight end, if you have a shot at the best player at a position, that's the list, Philip.
Yeah, and that's why it's very unlikely that either one of those guys will be available at 10. I've said I think Quinshon Judkins will be an absolute steal even in the second round. As high as the second round, he's a steal because I think he is the best running back in this draft. He's a guy I would want to take. And I mean, I really like Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State, a guy who's going to be coming to the league as a guard, but he played left tackle for Ohio State Buckeyes when they had the injury to Simmons. I mean, he's got versatility along the line. He's a day 2 pick, most likely, an early day 2 pick. That's a guy that I think the Bears should potentially target. And if you're getting a guy like Jackson in the second round, then you can go defensive line. You can go Mason Graham, or you can go Mikael Williams, or, and vice versa, But ultimately, Phil, I just want them to take the best player available, as I keep stating. Crooked Kamesh says, should we look into drafting brisker competition? 100%. 100%. I love Brisker, and I think he was starting to take off this season, but you can't bank on him. The injuries, the concussions have been hard for him to recover from, and they'll probably happen again based on the way he plays. So I am not interested in just banking on Brisker as being my only safety. They definitely should look into drafting or signing help at the safety position, because I've said before, I'm not banking on Brisker.
Yeah. I want to apologize, guys, to the audience, to Dustin. Having some issues, was in the hospital today earlier. I'm toughing this out. I'm having some nausea spells, guys. If you see me continue to leave and come back, I apologize. That's what's going on. I'm trying to tough this out for you guys since you're here for us. And we've got over 20 right now in the chat. So thanks for being here, guys. But did want to explain myself on that. Not doing a disappearing act for no reason. Dustin, if you'd like to, I've got those deadlines.
Real quick, one more thing. Crooked Commish says, if you haven't already, please smash the like button. 4 stars rocks. Thanks, Crooked Commish. Yeah, man.
Thanks, Crooked.
Hit that like button, guys.
Brother.
Make sure you're subscribed. We're going to, anytime we put out content, hit that notification bell so you get the notification and you can come check us out, whether it's live or later on. But we appreciate you all greatly. We have a lot of fun talking to you guys every Monday night, every Wednesday night, every Thursday night. Try to get you guys as much content as possible. But yeah, we can move with those headlines, deadlines. And again, I want to tell the chat, if you guys got answers to these questions, throw them in there. We want to know what you guys think as well. I mean, Brandon's going to read off a statement and ask us if it's a headline or a deadline, meaning it's not happening or it is happening.
Yeah, guys, we do this on Thursday night, the bare minimum. It's pretty fun. We sometimes get the chat involved. And once you guys start to get involved and give your own opinions, it really starts to roll. So like Dustin said, I give you basically some context. You tell me if there's something we could print in the paper today or something that stands no chance of happening. So number one, Dustin, these are regarding the guys. These are related to the draft. Yeah, since we're kind of talking about the draft today, we're beating that up. These are related to the draft. My first is post-combine. Tyler Booker, who is, guys, a guard in the NFL draft. Tyler Booker will end up being a top 15 pick in this NFL draft.
I think that's a headline. I've already mentioned multiple times. I'm very high on Tyler Booker. I think he's the best guard in this draft. You got tackles that are moving to guard coming into the draft, but this guy's just played guard for Alabama against, again, great competition, which matters to me a lot. He's a big boy. He's not great at pulling, which is a concern, because you want your guards to be able to pull and get out there and meet that guy on the edge. But in terms of holding his own one-on-one against the guy across from him, there's not many people better than him in this entire draft at any position on that offensive line at doing that, Brandon. I think it's a headline. I think he is a blue chip player in this draft when it's all said and done.
Daniel, guys, I am. Oh, Daniel, appreciate you, Jeffrey. Daniel Jeffrey says headline. I am on record, guys, for saying this, and I'm going to stand by it. I think pound for pound, he's probably the best offensive lineman in the draft. It's just a guard doesn't hold so much value compared to these tackles.
So then a question off of that, would you be upset if the Bears took him at number 10? Just said, fuck it, let's take him.
I wouldn't, no, because I think he's going to end up, I think his projection is going to end up being somewhere around like 12 to 15. So I don't think you're reaching too far if you take him at 10th. And the guy is 6'5", 355 pounds, but he moves exceptionally well for his size, man. I mean, this guy.
For his size, yes.
I think he is going to be a player that if the Bears don't pick him, we're going to hear about Tyler Booker for a long time, for sure. So I call it
everybody, but yeah.
Okay, Dustin. I know this one we can beat up for a little bit. There will be 3 quarterbacks taken in the first round of this draft.
I think it's a deadline. I mean, the way it could change. Jackson Dart is a guy that can put himself in the first round competition with a really good performance at the combine and his pro day. Will Howard is another guy who's third on some people's boards at that.
He's
quarterback
like 6'6".
I mean, he played his best when it mattered most, and that matters at the quarterback position more than any other position. Like Will Howard brought it when Ohio State needed him to win that national championship and get through the playoffs. So, I mean, I think it's a possibility, but right now I would say deadline, because I just don't think this quarterback class is very strong, and I don't think teams are as willing to mortgage their future for the potential of a quarterback. I mean, last year we saw a lot of quarterbacks go, Brandon, because their talent was verified, and it showed in their performances when they got the opportunities to play. This class is nowhere near that. So I think those two will be the only ones we see.
Yeah,
What
and
do you
as you
think?
mentioned, Dustin Will Howard, the measurables are obviously something that's going to be appealing to teams. He is, like you said, 6'5" or 6'6", somewhere around there. He's a big guy, and he played really well for Kansas State before he transferred to
Yeah,
Ohio State for that NIL deal. He is a good
Broski
player,
would
but
take him
Dustin,
over any of them, he says.
I'm going to say headline, but I'm going to say this. I don't believe that there's three quarterbacks in this draft that are worth a first round pick. I just know how the NFL works in regards to desperation for this position. I think somebody's going to feel they have to pull the trigger because
Maybe,
I think it's
maybe you get
Jackson Dart.
maybe you get that team like the Raiders if they don't get Sanders or Ward in their first with their first pick at 6. They or
Trade back
they
in.
trade back into the end of the first round. You see that often in these types of draft classes where like that happened with Lamar Jackson and people really missed on Lamar Jackson in that draft and the Ravens were able to trade back into the first round to get him. I mean, if you have something like that happen, that could be intriguing. And I think it would be Jackson Dart the way it's going right now, but I am in agreement with Broski. Howard should probably be the third best quarterback in this draft for sure, but he would take him over Sanders and Ward is what he's saying. So I mean, Will
Howard's
Howard,
got a hell of an
good,
arm.
good
He's got
player.
a hell of an arm. And Dustin, I agree with you. And this is pretty common, guys. And why this happens, where a team trades into the bottom of the first round to get a quarterback, is because the same as the second round, or the same as the first round in the NFL draft, the second round applies as well. Those top 5 or 6 teams in each round are the teams that were the worst in the NFL last year, right? So if those top 5 or 6 teams are in need of a quarterback and they don't take one in the top 5 or 6 picks of the draft, that is where they'll likely find a quarterback next, is in the top of the second round, because those again are the worst teams from the NFL.
And generally, you don't see quarterbacks taken in the second round that pan out lately either, that turn into much. So, I mean, like, it'll be interesting to see, but I don't think that we're going to see 3 quarterbacks taken in the first round the way it's looking right now.
Okay, so we got a split there, guys. Headline and deadline. Dustin goes headline, or deadline, I go headline. All right, third, Dustin, Landon Jackson, obviously the edge rusher from Arkansas. I think he's 6'7". The guy is
Yeah, he's
massive.
huge.
Oh, he will be
6'7",
this,
285.
and this is not regards to where he's selected, guys. After the draft, he will be
Very good point,
in
Zach.
his career. Landon Jackson will be the second best edge rusher taken in this year's draft.
Behind Abdul Carter, right?
Yes, yeah, Carter, without saying, is
Yeah, yeah.
worlds better than anyone in this draft. Maybe
Yeah,
as a prospect.
listen, I like Landon Jackson a lot, and he is kind of like a late first, early second round guy on everything that I've been reading so far. But I think Shamar Stewart, I would take over him. I think Mikel Williams, I would take over him. And the other
And then
guy,
you got Green and
Mike
Pierce.
Green out of Marshall. I don't know. I might like Jackson better than Mike Green, but Mike Green did lead college football in sacks this past season. I mean, you're
And
Landon Jackson and Shamar Stewart. You're talking about guys that have the profile, they have the projection, like they got the size, strength, speed combination that you look for in those guys, and a good skill set with their hands. But I mean, that didn't produce results for them in college. You didn't see
no,
them racking up sacks, hurries for sure, but you didn't see the sacks piling up for either one of those guys. Those are straight projections.
yeah, and
That's
the name we didn't
a lot
mention,
of that
guys,
in the
a
defensive end
guy
position.
who even prior to the combine is really starting to fly up boards, I'm seeing, is Pierce, who I think is now projected in the top 10.
Chatter.
And
I just saw him on Matt Miller's board. He was in the 30s. So I mean, like,
oh, really?
yeah. I mean, he was a top 10 guy 2 years ago for sure. I mean, he had a down season. I mean, there's a lot of good defensive end potential, but
Yeah,
you're not seeing a lot of the results from them on the football field this past season.
yeah.
So they could potentially fall to the second round. And you're talking about projecting them to be something based on their skill set and how that translates into the NFL. So you're taking some risks with some of these guys, no matter what, Brandon.
Yeah, and they keep calling this a meat and potatoes draft, guys. I think what they're referring to is the trenches are pretty solid in this draft. I mean, all the way into the third round, you can find some potential starters on both the offensive line and defensive line. So yeah, I'm going to say deadline just because
Yeah, I say deadline as well. I think they're
calling Landon Jackson the second best and a meat and potatoes draft when he's projected somewhere between 27th to like 35 is you'd be lucky if that guy ended up being a top 3 edge rusher in the NFL out of
Well,
this draft.
just because he's drafted in the second round, don't mean he won't end up being the best
Oh
defensive
yeah,
end
as
in this
Zach says here, Jalen Hurts was drafted in the
second
second
round
round.
QB. Yep.
He spent 2 Super Bowls, guys. Next one, man. I hope we get some out of the chat here, guys, because this one I think is being stirred over a lot by a lot of people in the NFL, not just fans. Travis Hunter should be selected as a wide receiver as opposed to a defensive back.
I think that's a headline, 100%. I know that they've announced that he's going to do the combine as a defensive back, as a cornerback, and I don't think he's the best cornerback in this draft. I think Will Johnson out of Michigan is much better than him as a pure cornerback. I think he's the best receiver in this draft if he's just a receiver. Now, the thing that teams see with him in terms of those positions is they can put him at cornerback and then utilize him on offense sparingly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the ability, and you got to think, just no matter what teams want or what his agent's telling him is best for him, this guy's going to make so much more money if he's a wide receiver in the NFL, right? That can't go to the wayside. If you're Travis Hunter, you want to do what's best for you and yours. Look at the contracts these guys are making a wide receiver.
Yeah,
A
for sure.
DB, a
Yeah.
DB's not going to come anywhere near the number he's going to make if he's a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL.
You know what teams are really focusing on with this, wanting him to be the cornerback, is that it's just a lot harder to find a really good cornerback in the
Yeah,
NFL than it
the
is a wide
position is
receiver.
few and
But
far
that's
between.
their preference. That shouldn't determine Travis Hunter's preference. I think Travis Hunter is a much better receiver than cornerback, to be honest. And I think that's the way I would go about it if I were Travis Hunter. But he's gonna have to go with what these teams think, because the team that drafts him is gonna pay him. So I mean, he's gonna have to lean that way. But I
Well,
just hope it doesn't affect him in terms of his
and the
performance.
potential effect, and it will affect where he's drafted, guys, because we know the higher you're drafted, the more money you make on your rookie deal. So if Travis Hunter's told as a DB, you'll be taken second overall, he's probably going to want to enter this draft as a DB. Daniel Jeffrey says headline there, so he agrees with you, Dustin.
Where
I
are
agree with
you at?
you.
Yeah,
I agree. If I'm Travis Hunter, I want to be drafted as a wide receiver, and it's just a
and
funner
like you
position
said,
to play.
it's a more fun position to play for sure. I would imagine. But then, like you said, that second contract, if he performs better at receiver, he's going to earn a better contract. And like you just pointed out, receivers already are earning more money than a cornerback on that contract extension. So I mean, that should play into it. Just thinking down the line, not just in this draft. From Travis
These
Hunter.
Justin Jefferson, Amon Ra, St. Brown, these CeeDee Lamb, these deals, guys. I mean, you're talking about upwards to 200 million. These guys are getting close to $200 million now. These receivers, you're not going to get that as a DB in the NFL. It
Yeah,
might be
over
one,
30 million a
you
year.
might one day. It's not happening right now. All right, Dustin. Last not least, and I think that we've had a couple of chats already regarding this position. So I know I'm going to be disagreed with by, I forget who it was who was talking about Will Howard. Was that Zach
It
that
was
put the Will Howard
Broski.
thing?
Broski.
Broski, okay. Cam Ward is the only pro-ready quarterback in this draft.
I say deadline, and people aren't going to be happy with the fact that I think Shedeur Sanders is probably more pro-ready than Cam Ward right now. I mean, this quarterback class is lacking for sure, but Shedeur Sanders showed a lot of improvement in terms of his timing and in terms of his anticipation in throwing the football. I think he actually works really well in a pro system, and he doesn't have the arm strength Cam Ward has. But in terms of throwing in a pro system with timing and anticipation and accuracy, I think he's much better than Cam Ward, and I think he's a lot better than people think he is. I think he will perform pretty well in the NFL, man. I really do. I think Shedeur Sanders being a top 10 pick is inevitable, and I think a team that drafts him is going to get a pretty solid quarterback. I really do. I think I would take Sanders over Cam Ward.
See, I'm going to say headline to this, Ward being the most priority. Dustin, Shedeur Sanders has impressed the hell out of me, and he's improved greatly every year, but he still plays way out of control. It's chaotic. Watching
He
Sanders,
holds the ball too long for sure.
yeah, and it's like, it's not the way it's supposed to go, but he finds a way to get it done. Ward impressed the hell out of me. And Dustin, you turned me on to Cam Ward, but I knew once he transferred to Miami, this was going to be something special. The guy just sits in the pocket without a worry in the world. His pocket awareness, his poise. He stands in there. He steps up. He trusts the players around him, and he delivers the ball with hell accuracy, man. Especially the deep ball. I think halfway through the season, Cam Ward already had 25 passes of 40 yards plus. Wrap your head around that, guys. 25 passes of 40 yards plus. Halfway through the college season, this guy puts the ball on the money for receivers that are able to create separation downfield. He has thrown some very He had 7 interceptions, and I'll say this: all 7 of
They
them
were
were like,
bad.
"What the hell
Yeah,
were
they
you
were
doing?
bad.
What were you looking at, man?" He was almost looking directly at the defender he threw the ball to. So that's something that's going to
It's
hurt
got to
this
get cleaned
draft
up.
stock.
It's got
Yeah.
to get cleaned up, and I mean, and that's a coach's job and an NFL team's job is that they're prospects for a reason. There's things that you have to help them get better at. So if you like the talent that you see with Cam Ward, then you're going to look past those mistakes a little bit and say, I can help them improve in this area. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not writing home about any of these quarterbacks in this draft, Brandon. I'm just not.
No, if I was a team that needed a quarterback, I would probably be pretty upset. This is the draft to do so, and I might even hold off inside a bridge guy, Sam Darnold, to see if you've got the Arch Mannings or whoever it is going to be. Next year's quarterback class looks a little bit stronger. I am Aliva. Um, there's a few names, 4 or 5 names that are looked at as potential starters in the NFL immediately.
For sure, man. Those are our
And
headlines
then
and
who was
deadlines.
there's another. Quinn Ewers decided to stick around. I think, guys. I was thinking, Dustin, you froze for a sec. Quinn Ewers stuck around, right? Quinn Ewers stayed in the and
No, I think he's coming out.
oh, did he?
Yeah,
So
I think
Beck,
he's coming
who
out.
was it? Who was it that last minute decided he's going to stick around in
Beck
college?
is transferring. Yeah, Beck's
Okay,
transferred to
Carson Beck.
Miami. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So next year's class looks a lot more appealing if you're a quarterback needy team for sure.
Okay. What else we got, man? We kind of got our headlines, deadlines out of the way. Thanks to everybody for participating. I don't know if you noticed, but me and Daniel Jeffries were pretty simpatico throughout that entire process. He
Yeah.
was
Yeah. He's his
yeah.
deadline to the last one. Like Cam Ward is not favorite for anybody, man, who's keeping an eye on the quarterbacks in this draft. And if you're a Bears fan, there's no reason to, but I always want to see where the quarterbacks are potentially projected, especially because, guys, when the Bears have a top 10 pick, how many quarterbacks get selected is going to make a big impact on who they get, right?
Yeah, if 3 go
You
in the top
want
10, that
quarterbacks.
that
Yeah.
pushes one of those positional guys further
Yeah.
down the line that the Bears
Yeah.
can
You
have an
want
opportunity to
quarterbacks to
select.
go high in this
Yeah,
draft because
it's
that'll help
unfortunate
them.
that that's not happening. And Cam Ward was a guy I was high on last year at Washington State. Like I would have been, he was a guy I was talking about early on in the draft process for the Bears because I do like his skill set.
And he
It's
would have been
just,
a later pick, like a third
yeah,
or
for
fourth
sure.
round pick.
Yeah. But like it's going to be interesting to see how that goes, Brandon. But we'll see Cam Ward go as the first quarterback and Sanders probably the second, and then we'll see if we see another one in the first round, which I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree. It's a weak class. I know Michael, guys, one of our moderators here, he loathes this class of quarterbacks. I don't think he'd take a chance on any of these guys.
Yeah, a lot of teams are probably going to feel that way. The Tennessee Titans will either trade that first pick or use it on Abdul Carter. They're not taking a quarterback at number 1. I don't see that happening.
And man, there's some free agent quarterbacks that could serve as that 1-year bridge, right? I mean, Russell Wilson will be a free agent. Justin Fields will be a
Justin
free agent.
Fields,
There's
Sam
there's there's
Darnold.
some there's some guys this year that you can get your hands on to hold you over. I don't like desperate drafting for quarterbacks, Dustin. We saw this happen with Will Levis, and I think the Titans learned their lesson. That's why they're projected by all sources to trade back with that pick. They don't want to do this again, right?
Yeah.
They don't want another Will Levis on this team that's going to set you back another year or two.
Dennis
I
Moody
know.
asks if Campbell, Banks, Pierce, and Green are there at 10. Who are you picking? Campbell. I'm taking Campbell.
Yeah, Campbell's projected to be a top 5 pick in this draft. So if he's there at 10, you got lucky. And don't think too hard, guys. Like when Jalen Carter fell to the Bears, take that damn guy, right? Jalen Carter was projected as the best talent in that draft. Will Campbell, I think, is projected somewhere between 4 or 5. If he's there at 10, I mean, this is just like, what do you call it, Dustin? A horse mouth? What do you say? There's a term.
Look a gift horse in the mouth,
Yeah.
like you
So
did with Jalen Carter. Yeah.
yeah. So I think you got to take Campbell, Moody. I really do, and I like Banks. I do. Pearson Green especially is a guy I don't think I'd take in the top 10. He's one of those. I think I think Green is going to be a combine hero, one of those guys who flies up boards after weeks because he's a very athletic player.
So is Pierce. So is
But
Pierce.
Green hasn't really, like you said, Dustin. I don't know that he's really put it on paper yet.
Well, I mean, he led college football in sacks
Sacks, yeah.
at 17. Yeah, so I mean, he's done and he performed very well at the Senior Bowl. He's climbing fast. So I mean, but again, I don't know that I'm taking that guy at 10. And the conversation with Campbell and Banks gets really muddied when you start talking. Certain draft evaluators say that Banks will transition to guard and be much better, and Will Campbell will be that left tackle no matter what. And other draft evaluators say Campbell will be much better at guard, and Banks is the left tackle. So it's like I think it's going to come down to how the Bears evaluate those guys. Like, do the Bears
And
see them being a left tackle? Because then that makes them the no-brainer pick at 10. If the
and if
Bears see
this means
Campbell as the
anything,
guard and Banks as a tackle, they're going to go with Banks if they had the choice of both of them.
and Moody, if this means anything to you,
So do I, Moody.
Calvin Banks was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. Will Campbell was a 4-star recruit. I don't know if that means anything to you. So Will Campbell kind of turned it on in his collegiate career, where Banks was always one of the country's best players. I don't know if that holds any sway in your decisions, but we saw this with Javon Dexter and Jalen Carter. Javon Dexter, coming out of high school, was ranked much higher, well, not much higher, but higher than Jalen Carter. And then through college, as Will Campbell has done, Jalen Carter proved to the world, I probably should have been the number one ranked tackle in the country in high school, right?
Yeah, I think Campbell and Banks are pretty neck and neck. And I mean, I hear this all the time about the Jalen Carter thing. He wouldn't have succeeded on the Bears. No leadership, no culture. Like, how do you establish a culture? How do you establish leadership? You get leaders in the building. The Bears not doing that is not an excuse to not add talent. Not in my mind.
Well, and
You have to add the talent, and then you have to have people in place that hold that talent accountable. That's what you do. Jalen Carter
and,
not succeeding here just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, what's he going to do? Is he just going to go out and gangbang instead of play football? Like, that don't add up to me.
well, and Broski, I think this is what they mean when they say
I
blue
agree
chip
with you, Moody.
talent. This is what when they say blue chip talent. I don't think it matters where this guy's drafted. He's gonna be the guy he is, right, Dustin? That's kind
Yeah.
of how you define these guys. They can work no matter
No
where
matter
they go,
where they go, no
right?
matter what system they're in.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Micah
Yeah.
Parsons, he was. If you placed him at outside linebacker or defensive end, this guy was going to be a monster. It didn't matter what coach or
Khalil Mack, when he
scheme.
came out of Buffalo, same thing.
Yeah.
Like those elite talents will find a way. If you're talking about his head not being screwed on right, there's no way for us to know that. And if the Bears can't take the best player available because they haven't done their job in establishing a culture and leadership in their locker room, then that's an even bigger indictment. To me, it really is. And Broski brings up Gray Zabel. He could be a center too, not just a guard. I mean, he played every line position at the Senior Bowl. He's played every line position in
Yeah.
college.
Versatility is the
Very
thing that'll
versatile.
make you climb up boards.
Yeah, second round guy.
Yeah. And Broski mentions the
Broski
old
will
history.
agree to disagree. We've had this conversation 100 times with 100 different Bears fans that feel the same way you feel. I just can't buy it, man.
Yeah. Sean and Kyle would be pitching your side for sure, man. There's a lot of guys who want to hold him accountable for what he did prior to the draft. And the guys, he's a kid. He was a kid. Kids make mistakes. And that was a detrimental one, but kids make mistakes. We've seen it a lot.
100%. We all make mistakes. I still make mistakes. Brandon, you still make mistakes. Like, if you're judged only on your mistakes, then you're not, again.
I ain't worth much of nothing.
Yeah, for sure. And again, when you're a prospect, the team's job and the coaching job is to get the most out of that person and help them improve on the things that they need to get better at. That's just, you have to have a system in place that does that for these young guys that come into the NFL, and not having it is not an excuse to take elite talent.
And I don't know if this means anything to Bears fans specifically, because they might hold some bias for Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio, guys, did speak on Jalen Carter's attitude and ability to learn, and he loves this kid. He loves this kid. And I don't mean just the player. He likes the attitude of Jalen Carter. So I don't know if that says anything. I don't know. I'm not trying to change your mind, broski. You feel like you said, agree to disagree. But
Well,
Moody says this. Oh, and Dennis Moody, Dustin pointed us. Dustin said we agree, but you said both Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks are the best left tackle on the Bears immediately. We've said this for weeks, and
100%.
we couldn't
Yes.
agree more. That's why, if you're drafting one of these guys, Dennis Moody, I don't think you were here for it. You're not moving this guy to guard. No chance in hell. If you're taking one of these players, is he a guard on this football team?
Hell no. Let them fail at left tackle first. If that's the case, if you're planning on moving them from left tackle to guard, at least give them a shot at left tackle first to see if they can actually do it before you just pigeonhole them into the guard position. These guys have both played left tackle again. I'll say it again, at the highest level in college football at an extremely successful level. Literally, Will Campbell went 27 games without allowing a sack in his college career. Started as a freshman at left tackle and never gave up the position. Both captains, both leaders,
Yeah,
both
and I
playing
think
against the best edge rushers in college that are going into the NFL. Like
and I'm
they're
gonna say
technicians.
this. They're getting the arm length thing is about Calvin Banks and Will Campbell are both really, really good football players, man. Really good football players, both of them. Like, and you've talked a lot about Campbell's history in college and his numbers. They're both very good football players. These guys were two of the top players in the country coming out of high school. It hasn't changed now. They're both projected top 10 picks. So they've done it on every level and they continue to improve the tougher their competition gets, right?
Yeah, 100%. And Broski brings up that Jalen Carter quit at the combine. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. chose not to participate at the combine.
Caleb Williams didn't show up for the combine,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and I believe it was Carter's pro day. I mean, at the end of the day, he just kind of bailed on it, had an injury. But like we're saying, I mean, he's had success with the Eagles. He's had success with
I
the
want to
Eagles, so
say this,
good for
guys.
him. It's
In
worked
regards to
out
the
well.
combine,
So,
which is around the corner here, does anyone see Dustin? Have you seen this video of Roma Dunze at the combine when the lights were basically getting turned off? Have you seen this?
yeah,
That three
taking
cone
everybody's
drill
yeah
where he like just wouldn't accept not
his
getting
time.
the fastest speed.
Yeah.
Well, he wanted to have the fastest speed of all the whole receiving class, and they were like literally walking up to him like, everyone's gone home for the day, Rome. Like we're about to shut this down, and he's like, I just need a few more. Like, I don't know how that doesn't impress. The Bears clearly saw something.
Listen, and hopefully the Bears see something in free agency that they like and in this draft that they like. We got the combine starting this week, Thursday, going into the weekend. It's going to be happening. I don't know how much I'm going to watch. I will pay attention to the numbers, but I mean, like, again, the biggest thing that I judge these guys on is what they did on the football field against competition, and I think the combine is going to change some things, move some people up, move some people down. It'll help the Bears set their board a little bit. So this is a big weekend for the NFL offseason in general, but specifically for the Bears, Brandon. So we'll have our eyes on it, and
What's up, Shorty?
we'll have updates about it in terms of how it impacts the Bears, right?
Yeah, and Dennis says something here, and I want to talk Broski. Like I don't want to. I want you to feel like we're like everybody has their opinion, and there is a moral compass that you have to hold yourself to, especially as a general manager. You don't want problem players, that's for sure. But I we're judging these guys off players, not people, right? That's how we're evaluating them as players, not people. And Dennis Moody makes a point. The mental case that was Jalen Carter in everyone's eyes, the guy that the Bears were willing to pass on just wrecked an offensive line, Patrick Mahomes' offensive line, more specifically in his Super Bowl, and that makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
So did the Eagles regret drafting this guy because of what he did off the field before the draft? No, probably not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, the point is that everyone thought that the Eagles had a better infrastructure, which they did. You can't argue against that. Again, it's just not a reason. It's not a reason to not take elite talent to me. I mean, I don't want to beat this up anymore. I mean, we've continued to have this conversation, and I'm sure we will continue to. But at the end of the day, the Bears have a draft coming up that they need to get some hits in. They need to get some hits. Shout out to Shorty, Bears Country Podcast, showing up, saying what's up.
Yeah,
Appreciate
guys,
you.
go over there, like and subscribe that
Yeah.
channel, Bears Country
But
Podcast.
before you do that, like and subscribe our channel. Make sure you did that first before you do that. We'll be back with you guys on Wednesday. And me and that'll be Kyle and Sean and Jay on Wednesday. Thursday, me and Brandon will be here for the bare minimum late night. We're gonna check out the combine this week and have some more stuff to talk about. Come back next Monday and we'll get
And
it in some more.
another potential movie review, guys. So check that out on bare
We'll
minimum.
see. If I have time to watch a movie, we'll see. But listen, we want to thank everybody for being here. We appreciate you all very much. It's going to be a fun off season for the Bears, and we're looking forward to the next step in it, which is the combine this weekend. Brandon, anything you want to go out on?
No, as Dustin said, guys, this combine's going to do nothing but bring content and bring things to talk about. And then you guys clearly in the chat are killing it, crushing it, and we love having
Yeah,
these
the chat was great
conversations.
tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, guys, like we said in the beginning of the show, when you guys start to throw stuff in here, it just keeps content rolling for us, and we get to bounce ideas off of you. And doing that with 30 people as opposed to 2 opens the door to a lot more conversations, right?
So much so that there were multiple things we wanted to get to tonight in terms of our structure outline for the show that we didn't because the conversation with you guys and the engagement was better and it was more important. So we will continue to do that and include you guys in our conversations. We appreciate y'all greatly. Okay. Have a great rest of your night, everybody. Bear down. We'll see you again on Wednesday.
Bye, guys. Bear down.